So these are our old ones. We're going to group them again so that they're easy for us to delete. And these are our new ones. I'm going to make a copy again by holding down the Shift key. I'm going to rotate them around. And then we'll move them into place. And you'll notice because I rotated these 180 degrees from the opposite side, even though they're on either side of the model and you're never going to render them and see them both at the same time, that texture there is that texture up there now, so they're completely different that way as well. Like I said, not that it makes a difference because you're never going to see both sides of that at the same time. Now, I know these columns, like I said, are a little smaller than the ones that we're replacing them with, but the ones underneath really should not be bigger. They should all be the same size anyway. Seems to only be maybe one or two that'll like that. This is how to apply textures in Max. I'm not sure. What do you mean by? You mean? I'm doing this because I want to copy the same texture across different pieces of geometry. That's why I'm copying through the channel info here. Because these are all the same geometry and the same mesh, and I want to copy the different texture UVs to these meshes here. So yeah, if you're copying UVs around, then this is the way to do it. Go through the channel info and the utilities tab in Mac. Initially though, when we were creating our UVs, we put on an unwrap UVW and did a flatten mapping before we took it into Mari to paint over it. So generally, you only do it this way through the channel info if you have geometry that's exactly the same and you want to copy the UVs between them. Usually just if you're working on a piece of geometry that you want to texture up, then you won't do this. You'll go into your modify tab and do an unwrap UVW or a UVW map, depending on what the object is. You'd work with one of those two if it's just a unique piece of geometry. Yeah, I don't know either of Blender, whether you can copy the UVs around or not. I'd be surprised if you couldn't. It may not be through the channel info that I'm showing you here, but I know in Max as well, you can go into your unwrap UVW and there's an option at the top that's save UVs and load UVs. You can do it that way as well. And that might be an option in Blender. Yeah, and I understand what you mean. But you may be able to do it in Blender through the actual UV. I don't know what their UV interface looks like, but if you can load or save UVs anywhere in there, then you can probably do it that way instead of going through, like I said, channel info and Max. This is just an easier way to do it. I'm going to select that group that's the old one and delete it. And we're going to end isolation mode again. And again, we're going to jump into full screen so we get a better look. And again, we're just going to have to copy our UVs over to fix that texture problem. And that's what I mean by using the channel info, because these are all the same pieces of geometry. I just want to copy the UVs from this one to these ones, so that's why I use channel info here. But you could probably do it again, like I said, through the unwrap UVW with the load and save UVs. So you may have that option in Blender if you don't have anything like this channel info thing. This is, like I said, just a quicker and easier way to do it in Max. As soon as you paste those in, it brings the texture back to the way it should be. So we're nearly there. Let's just do a quick run around our model here and have a look. Let's do these last two here at the back. So that one. I'm just going to select that one to copy the texture. Actually, I'm going to select this one here, because it's far enough away that you won't notice if you're copying and using the same texture. But again, I'm going to jump into isolation mode and back into the top viewport because it's easier to work in. I'm going to use the same model here, even though these two are right next to each other. I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees on one of them. So I'm going to make a copy of this one. You currently UV unwrap an object and then duplicate the object. Each one has a UV. Yeah, well, that's true. You'll notice with Max though, when I'm duplicating the object here, it's messing up the UVs. So that's why I'm using the channel info to copy the UVs back in again. And that's probably a bug in Max, I'd say. Generally though, that's generally what you would do. You just copy the object and it will copy the UVs for you. I'm going to copy that column again. They're both using the same texture, but what I can do is I can rotate this one 180 degrees, or around 180 degrees, so that the textures, even though they're right next to each other, look unique. If that didn't work, we could just grab another column from around the other side that's further away. This should work though, for us. We will have a look in just a second, make sure. No, that's alright. No, there is no real noob questions. Everybody, not everyone knows everything, so that's completely fine. I should have actually grouped those two before I moved them, but that's alright. Large column 09, because I know the ones underneath are in groups anyway, so as long as I'm selecting a group, I know it's the old one. No, there are no silly questions, no noob questions. If anyone has a question, feel free to ask me. That's not a problem. Just like there are no wrong answers, there are no wrong questions, so feel free. And it can get a bit confusing between the different versions of 3D software as well, because they all do things slightly differently. So, and I'm showing you how it works in Max. So if you're not sure on whatever 3D software you're using about something, then if I can, I'm happy to help. Let's copy our UVs across. Again, we're going to select the old one here and paste our UVs in. We're going to do the same on this side, and we'll check the texture to make sure it looks suitably different. And like I was saying, it does. Even though we're using the exact same texture maps, because we rotated our column 180 degrees and we're looking at the other side, you will never know that they're both the same texture map. So alright, let's have a look at these columns at the front now. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to use the same texture on these shorter columns, but we'll give it a go. So basically I want to choose a column texture that's completely different from as far away as I can, so this one here. I'm going to select that column there. I'm going to go into isolation mode on both of these again. And again, I'm going to jump into the top viewport. I'm going to make a copy of this column. I'm just going to rotate it around about 90 degrees or thereabouts. This could just save us some time and having to retexture yet another piece of geometry that I don't really want to have to do, because I'm going to have to do it for those larger columns anyway. This is a little bigger than the underlying one, but again, they should all be the same width anyway. But I know that they're going to be different heights, so I'm going to jump into my side view here. And you can see that the old column is much shorter. So I'm going to grab my scale tool Just going to pull it out to the side a bit here so I can see them both together. I'm going to scale it down just in the Z direction, in the Y direction, sorry, in this viewport. I do that by making sure it's highlighted only in on one axis, not like that where it's highlighting both. I'm going to do that just to get them both into the same height. I'm going to move it back into position. We're going to exit our isolation mode here. Now I'm going to select the old column, which is this group, and delete it. Now, even though we've changed the size of that model, we should still be able to copy the UVs across. So let's have a look here to fix up our texture map. And there we go. So that saved us having to retexture that column in Mari on its own. And because we used the texture from all the way around here, there's that column there, we're never going to see them both at the same time, so that's fine. And now we can use this column that's already sized to replace the 2 on that side and 2 on that side. So let's do that now. They are going to have the same texture, but we can swap that out once we've made the replacement. So I'm going to select you would. This column is not grouped. What a pain. Alright. That's my bad. I didn't group it when I made it. I should have. I'm just going to save Max here because Max is getting a little sluggish on me and I don't trust it. I don't want to lose half an hour's work there. So we'll wait for Max to finish saving, and then I'll do my best to jump in and try and group up that column so it's easier to select before we delete it. Before we replace it and delete it. I don't think you can scale the UV in Blender Live next to Geometry Live. Really? Oh, I'd be surprised if you couldn't. I mean, with scaling the geometry like I just did with that smaller column, you are in effect going to slightly push your UVs together, but like you can see here with this texture map, that hasn't affected the texture map at all. If I went to extreme and made the column half that size, then you couldn't use the same texture or UVs because it'll all be too squashed together. It'll look odd. But because there was only a slight scaling difference between that column and this one here, you're not going to notice the slightly squished UVs or texture map. It still looks quite fine. So small scaling differences you can get away with. Anything really large, like if I was to scale it, like I said, to half of that height, I'd have to retexture it again because the UVs would look odd. The texture map would look squashed. Now, it's going to be a real effort for me to select this column pieces because of everything else around it. So, what am I going to do here? I'm going to jump into my top viewport. Yeah, I'll jump into my top viewport. I'm going to go into wireframe mode. Alright. I'm going to select like that. I'm just going to select a lot of stuff I don't want. Now I'm going to jump, well, before I do that, I'm going to start deselecting bits that I know I don't want. I think I selected the wrong column there actually. This is the one I want here. if that works. I'm going to go back into light shaded again, or default shading again. And just my max viewport is just a little slow. Now I'm going to go into isolation mode. Now I'm going to deselect the pieces of geometry I don't want. Yeah, I don't really know either with Sniper Echo, with Blender, where that might be. I'm sure it'd be there though. That's a pretty common thing for 3D software, to have that function. I'm sure it'll be in there somewhere. Now I'm going to select all these pieces of geometry that are not part of that column down the bottom. I'm going to go into isolation mode again, so double isolate. You can see I missed that bit. I'm going to deselect that bit, and again I'm going to go into isolation mode again. You can just keep filtering your way down until you get to the piece of geometry that you want, and that's that one there. I'm going to group it, and now I'm going to exit isolation mode, and we should be good to go. That's just if you've got a piece of geometry like that that's in a really difficult spot that and in pieces like that one was, and you're going to find it hard to select them individually. Okay, so we have that one selected. I'm going to select our column here, and again we're going to go to isolation mode, top viewport, so it's easy to move, and we're going to replace that column. Again, I'm just holding down the shift key to make a copy. Now, with this one I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees, even though I'm probably going to swap out the texture completely. And again, I'm going to move it into position. And then I'm going to select the old one, which is the group, and delete it. We're going to have to fix our UVs up. I just want to get into an angle here where we can see the texture. And select our old column here, and we're going to copy our UVs across again. Now we did rotate the column 180 degrees, which means we could probably get away with leaving that texture map on there if we wanted to, because we're looking at it at a different angle. And I'm just checking the texture map to see if it looks suitably different, and it does. If it didn't though, we have 4 different versions here we could swap it out with, but I won't do that because this one looks different enough just from rotating it 180 degrees. So now that we have those two done, we've only got the two on the other side to do. I'm just looking at what's going on in here with these pieces of geometry. Looks like I meant to have a column in there that I haven't put in, so I'll do that later. But we'll do the two pieces of the two shorter columns on this side now. So I have one of my columns selected on that side, which is the right size. I'm going to select the two on this side. Are you going to be grouped for me? No, you're not. Let's start with this one to begin with. That's my bad. I should have grouped them before I started putting more geometry on top of it when I made the original model. Let's make a copy of that. Let's rotate it around 90 degrees instead of 180. Select the old one and delete it. And let's copy our UVs across again. Now I probably am going to swap out this texture map completely because it's you'll see them both in the render at the same time, and I want to make sure that they look completely different. So I'm going to choose a texture here, maybe number 2, and assign it to that model. So that's just to make sure that texture looks completely different from the one on this side. And they do. They're different texture maps completely. I mean, it is reusing a texture we've used around the outside here, but you're never going to see that in the same render as this. So now let's fix that one up there. And again, I'm going to jump into the top viewport here. And again, I'm going to go into wireframe mode. I do use shortcut keys when I'm not showing you guys how I work on stream. Yeah, I know what you mean. I do use shortcut keys, and I use macros on my mouse. Macros assigned to buttons on my mouse generally when I work on my own, but because I'm streaming what I'm doing. If I was to use macros or shortcut keys, you guys are not really going to know what I'm doing. You're not going to be able to see it. So I always make a point when I stream to, let me just go back to flat shaded. I always make a point when I'm streaming not to use shortcuts or macros, because I like to be able to, if somebody does want to learn Max, I want them to be able to see where I'm going and what buttons I'm hitting and all that sort of thing. So, but if I'm working on my own, yeah, I will. I'll use shortcuts. It's much quicker. But just not for while I'm streaming, so I want you guys to know where I'm going and what I'm hitting and what I'm doing. That's the reason. I'm going to deselect these parts of the model that I don't want. Again, I'm going to go into isolation, so I'm going to keep going down into isolation until I hit just that part of the geometry that I'm after. I've got 2 more to get rid of here. Now, I wouldn't have had this problem if I just remembered when I was creating the model to group this together, but I didn't. So it gives you an idea to see how I made up that column anyway. It's made of pieces of geometry. That's why it has a hole down the middle. Another way to do it, and probably a better way, would have been to use a cube, a box, and then start manipulating it that way so it was a solid piece of geometry. So anyway, let's group that together now so that we can easily delete it later on. Now we can exit isolation mode. And let's select the one here next to it so that we can copy it over back into isolation mode. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Normally I would use shortcuts. I do recommend people use shortcut keys, hotkeys, or macros to get anything done. It'll save yourself a lot of work, but I want people watching to be able to see what I'm doing, so that's why I'm constantly moving my mouse all over the screen. Just move that into position and select the old one and delete it. Again, we're going to go full screen here. Whoa. Are you kidding me? I think I moved the model instead of copying it. That's okay. We can do it again. We can just move a copy of this one. A little bit. And I just want to check how I have that model sitting underneath of the top column there. And it's basically right up to the edge. So. And just move it in. And move it back. Alright. Any reason you're asking is Blender is pretty much shortcut driven. Yeah, I've heard people say that about Blender. And it's a good way to work, generally, using shortcuts, because you'll save yourself a lot of time. I mean, there are ways around if you want to stream while you're working in Blender and you do have to use a lot of shortcuts. You can use a software to show people on screen what button you're pushing. But I like to keep my stream pretty clean looking. I don't like you'll notice I don't use a lot of overlays or anything like that, because I think they just get in the way of what people are doing. But, you know, for people that like to use overlays when they stream, then that's cool. And I do have that small music one in the corner over there, but I don't want to cover my screen in different things. I want people to be able to see what I'm working on. So I don't generally use any software that shows people what keys I'll be pushing and all that sort of thing. But if you do want to stream and you are using Blender and it does use a lot of shortcuts, then that's something you could use. Let's swap out that texture so that it's completely different again to the one in the back there. So let's go with the one here on the end. Okay, so again, no, we've got completely different textures here at the front. Different textures on the two through here. I know it's a little hard to see in this corner because of the shadowing, but they're all different. So we've pretty much textured everything up, except for maybe, I'm not sure, I'll have to have a look at what's going on in this corner just here. I have a feeling I meant to put another one of these columns in there, and I've only got the top part in. I think that's what's going on. I'll look at that shortly though. So we may have to put two more smaller columns in the background, in the back here, just up against that the border of the stairs there. And we still do have to texture up this one large column here. Now fortunately I can't really do what I did with the smaller columns at the front. Thanks. Thank you, Sniper Wrecker. I hope so. I tried to get myself out of the view as much as I could, and you know, and the music one off to the side as far as it could go, because I want people to be able to see most of the screen. Because I mean, when people are watching you on Twitch, they want to see what you're doing. They don't want to see, you know, crap everywhere. that's me anyway. I just like a nice clean looking stream without a lot of overlays and a lot of stuff going on. So I'm glad you think it's spot on, thank you. Like I was saying, with this large column here, unfortunately I don't think we can't take one of these, scale it up and scale it back like we did with the one at the front, that smaller column at the front, because scaling this texture out that wide is going to completely mess the texture up. It's going to stretch it. It's going to look odd. So unfortunately we can't cheat and just scale it up. It won't look right. There's two of these. There's one on this side and one on the other side. They're going to have to be textured uniquely in Mari. But that's okay. We can just create one texture and reuse it by rotating the one of the columns on the other side 180 degrees, and you won't notice that we've reused the same texture. And you're never going to do a render where you're going to see both of those at the same time, because they're on completely opposite sides of the model. So it's not really a big deal for us to have to create one more texture for that. But aside from that, our model is nearly done. Well, nearly done as far as texturing goes, and we've just got to fix up some small errors with some of the geometry intersecting in places it shouldn't be, like this column going through the floor.
A computer can take over much of this control.
And then I'm bringing in those other two statues, angel statues, for up here, and growing the ivy, and then we can start rendering it in view. I do want to take a couple of the textures into null to create some normal maps, just on things like these tiles here and the interior tiles here, and probably these tiles down here, and a couple of the textures we're using for the columns and things, just so that when we do a render in view, that normal mapping picks up the lighting really nicely and gives it a bit of depth. Because remember, these are just flat planes that these tiled sections are on. So creating a normal map in null will give us a little bit of a height that we can bake height, so that when we do the render it'll look like it's actual tiles. But aside from that, yeah, I think our model is coming together and nearly done. So I don't know if all you guys have been with me since I started back 6 or so weeks ago, and you saw it from when it was just pink and blue and grey model pieces. And as I was explaining then, I always colour each section that different colour, like these were I think pink and these were grey, and that's just to remind me visually that they need a different texture and that type of thing. But anyway, anyone that's seen the model from that starting position where it was just all untextured and pink and grey and blue, and we've textured it up over the weeks. We just have one more texture left to do, which is those large columns, and then we can start, like I said, we'll export the model, and well, apart from putting the statues in, which I've already created the angel statues, so they're ready to go, and growing the ivy, the flowering ivy, we're ready to we'll be ready to export it and bring it into Eon View and start doing some beauty renders. I'll probably take the model at some stage into Max 2016 as well, so I can render out some still model shots, but when I put it up for sale on my Creative Market store in Cornucopia. Because I like to use V-Ray, and I'm using V-Ray in Max 2016. I haven't installed it yet for Max 2017. And I'm not going to while Max is having all these problems. So we'll take it into 2016 and just do some model product shots of the color texture, and we'll also do an occlusion render as well, so that people, when they're looking at purchasing the model, can see what it looks like without the textures on, so they can get a better idea of the geometry. But with that, guys, I think we may leave it for today. I will be back on again though on Monday next week at 5 PM Pacific time in the US, which is 12 PM in Australia and 1 AM in the UK. I always post 15 minutes before I'm about to start streaming to my Twitter page at PhilDoes3D, so if you want to keep an eye on that on my Twitter page, you'll know just before I'm about to go live. But I always stream at the same time at 5 PM Pacific time US on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I'll be back on again next Monday. I want to thank you guys for sticking with me, watching the stream. I appreciate it. I appreciate it every time you guys follow me on Twitch. So thank you for that. Thank you for watching the stream. You have a good evening too, Sniper Echo. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I hope you guys who were watching enjoyed it. And I will hopefully see you guys again on Monday next week at 5 PM. Have a good weekend, guys. See ya.